And I love to go visit a neighbor that's older, and I would just hate to unknowingly take
Yeah,
something like that to somebody.
yeah.
Does it matter what flu vaccine you get according to what age you are? So if you're 75 or you're
Yeah,
40 or 5?
yeah, yeah. There's something called immunosenescence, and that the older we get, kind of the less robust our immune system is. So for patients over the age of 65, there are three designated vaccines that are a little stronger because
Okay.
they're not going to respond quite so well. If you look at our adolescents, they're going to respond really well to a vaccine. So the vaccines for seniors have a little bit more stuff in them,
Mm.
just to kind of get that immune system. But there are, I mean, there's some subtleties, and there are kind of standard vaccines that you and I might get that are going to have three strains. They're going to be for people up to the age of 65. There's the nasal flu vaccine that we talked about, which is more or less a standard vaccine. All of them are derived from eggs. Okay. And then there's two vaccines that are non-egg derived. So if someone had a really severe egg allergy, someone got short of breath, dropped their blood pressure, there's some things available. And then there are some vaccines that are available for seniors. So partly it's, kind of who you are and, what particular you're going to need. One of the newer recommendations that happened 2 years ago is anyone who's had an organ transplant who's under the age of 65 should get one of the souped up 65, just because their immune system doesn't work so well because we're giving them all those drugs to kind of protect the organ that's been transplanted into them.
So this is a total aside, but I have an autoimmune disease and I do IVIG every month.
Mhm.
So should I get a souped up version?
The recommendations aren't for you at that
Okay.
point.
Oh, that's
With
good.
your autoimmune disease, you might talk with your clinician who's part of that to say, what
Okay.
would be the best timing with my IVIG? Should I get it right before? Should I get it a little bit after? But you, especially, if your immune system is turned down
Right.
5%, 10%, you just want to be protected.
Yes, yes, I do. Where is the best place to get a flu vaccine? I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to make an
I,
appointment.
I,
It's gonna
I,
take forever.
I,
And
I
then
think
I don't get it.
I think wherever you can get one. So, getting it from the place where you get primary care,
Okay.
sometimes is good because they have it in the records and they might know some of the subtleties about what's going on with you, that might not be known at the drugstore. But the drugstore is fine as well. And depending on your state, one of the good things that's happened in the last few years is a lot of these state registries can kind of help funnel your vaccine information to your primary care office. So I think just getting one, um, I think it just protects you, um, and we can only do so much, and fate, can catch us all for all kinds of different things, and if we can protect ourselves, I'm not planning on getting a car accident, but I still wear my seatbelt.
Right.
So part of this is just, kind of best thing. It's putting on sunscreen. There's all these little safety things that we do, right? Cooking our chicken enough, and all these
Mhm.
things that we want to do because we want to be safer. And this is just kind of one of those things that we do as we get older. And the flu vaccine's indicated for everyone over 6 months of age. So really, it's pretty much the population.
Right. Well, and I think you're really make us think about, and there have been a few comments of who you're around, and I love to go visit a neighbor that's older, and I would just hate to unknowingly take
Yeah.
something like that to somebody.
Yeah. And
And
and I think that's really hard and heartbreaking, right? To know
Mhm.
that you kind of transmitted something to someone else. Um, you know, I work in healthcare. I'm taking care of other people's parents, other people's children. I have
Right.
kind of a responsibility, regardless of what I want for myself, to kind of protect these people I'm taking care of, whose immune system they might not be able to protect themselves, or for some reason they can't get the vaccine.
Right.
So I think that's part. But if you think of places like nursing homes and things like that, the flu can sweep through a nursing home really, really quickly. And certainly we're kind of worried about that population that's kind of, 50, 60 people that are all sitting inside the same building,
Mm-hmm.
and can be pretty bad for them. And if you look, when the flu hits town, there are more deaths from heart attacks and strokes and congestive heart failure, all these other diseases that cause us to die happen more commonly when the flu hits town, because it's a huge strain on an older system. And the 30-year-old who gets flu, it's going to miss a couple days of work and be on their back and be pretty grumpy, but probably not dying.
Right.
But, that 80-year-old might.
Right. Well, and if you're the 30-year-old or the 50-year-old, not that I'm telling my age, and I get sick, it's bad times around here. I mean,
Yeah.
it things do not go well at all. I my husband was sick earlier this week and I ended up out doing something and I said, "You know what? I'm not going to be back till after dinner." And he was better and he was like, "What should I feed the children?" I was like, "You have had these children for 20 years and you're asking me what to feed them. What if I were sick for days?
Yeah.
This would be terrible."
Yeah. And one of my good friends who's a family doctor had her 9-year-old get horribly sick with
Oh,
influenza, a really robust, healthy kid who ended down at one of our children's hospitals. So you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know who that kind of spinning wheel is going to kind of fall upon.
right.
So it is just kind of one of these things, and certainly appreciate with people having reticence about stuff, right? And there's a lot of kind of information out there that kind of scares us, and we're
Right.
worried about what we put in our body. But hopefully you have someone in your medical life who can kind of help answer some of these questions for you.
Right. And we have one question. Well, we have
Sure.
lots, but there's one I think that's kind of interesting. Can our immune system get lazy having so many flu vaccines over the years?
It really doesn't. It
Okay.
the one of the things, this kind of hygiene hypothesis. So
Okay.
if you look at our grandparents, our great grandparents, they lived in drafty houses and they had lots of kids and they had measles and tapeworm and all that. And things were different. There was a lot less asthma and there was a lot less autoimmune diseases and things like that, because the immune system had so much to do. But there's never a sign that someone later in life is going to have less of an immune system because they've been protected. And I mean, hopefully that helps people get to that later part of life.
Right.
And myself, just as a patient, had pneumonia last year, was horribly, horribly, horribly sick, and kind of felt helpless. Right, I'm supposed to know enough to be able to protect myself against all of these things, but you know, there's a bill that we're all going to pay at one point in our life, and
Mhm.
we just don't want to do it any sooner than we have to.
Right. Right. And I had one more question. What was it? Oh, somebody just asked it in here. Oh, is the nasal spray vaccine, what's the effectiveness difference? Is there one between the nasal spray and the shot?
It's roughly about the same. So that's
Okay.
indicated for people between 2 and 49, 2 and 50. That
Okay.
one is live. So the nasal flu vaccine is live. So in theory, and more in theory than in reality, someone could potentially get the flu from that, because that is a live product. And it's something we don't want to give people at this point who have kind of asthma and it can irritate, but even that is probably an overblown thing. But for people who don't like shots and people who want to go to the drugstore and kind of give it themselves at home, that is something in the new recommendations.
I remember before I let you go, I had my first three children were pretty close in age, and we went to the health department back in the
Mhm.
day to get our shots. There were great
Mhm.
nurses there, and
Sure.
my oldest son got his shot first, and he was maybe three, and then the 2-year-old was watching him, and the 3-year-old started howling, and the 2-year-old took off ran out the door, down the hall. I mean, he was gone. Anyway, it was really a funny,
mean, it,
a
I
funny,
mean, I mean,
funny
it's,
flu shot
I mean,
experience.
it's, and kids get a lot more shots. When I started in medicine in 1990, it was somewhere around 14 shots between birth and prom night, and we are up around 60. But a lot of the diseases that existed in 1990 have really disappeared. And,
Right.
I'm old enough that I've seen a lot of these diseases live. And it's kind of really wonderful when these things have disappeared because of that, and part of that is, kids have really robust immune systems, and the truth is, if something affects 50 kids in the United States, is it worth vaccinating 4 million kids for? Well, ask one of the parents of one of those 50 kids who die. They're going to say, 100%. And I mean, a lot of the things that we vaccinate against aren't really impact causing hundreds of thousands of deaths. It's small amounts of deaths, but it's significant to those parents and to those communities. And so partly it's just, being an informed consumer and probably not being someone who is so kind of reactionary to everything you see, and read a little bit and ask some questions. And probably it's not a decision you have to make in that moment anyway, right? You probably have a little bit of time with most of this stuff to think about it.
Right. Well, I think you've convinced me. I'm gonna go and get my flu shot because I
There you
don't want
go.
to miss my Valentine's Day fun.
There you go. There you
Well,
go.
thank you so much for joining me tonight. Sunday night is kind of an off time, but I think lots of folks are just sitting around looking at
I'm
this cold weather, thinking, "Are my children ever going to go back to school?"
honored to spend some time with your audience. So
Well,
you
thank you.